Welcome to the SPL Rundown. I'm your host, Apam, here joined with three wonderful guests. We have former SPL coach and SEC caster, AlphaJackal. We have current SPL support player for the Camelot Kings Genetics. And we have the coach of the Tartarus Titans, Cherryo, all the way from Egypt, to come and break down all of the games from the past week. Stick around for my interview with Sanford Soccer 2, the jungler for the Jade Dragons. But first, I think we should get into the group stage games from last week. I think we should start with Group A. Let's start with the Leviathans versus the Titans. I think these were close games. The Leviathans closed both out. The main note that I have is it seems like the Leviathans have sort of figured out their Fire Giant fights a little bit, getting, sort of to this playoff push. What do you guys feel about this set? Was it just the Leviathans showing their superiority?
I think it was a good set but even though Titans did end up losing, I think it was good for them to keep the games competitive and keep the games long,
Sure.
for as long as they did. But the fact that Leviathans came into this group as the top seed, getting a win against them would be nice, but keeping the games competitive is really what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then finding out what you did wrong during those competitive games, getting into the brackets and then beating them when you're in the brackets in the tournament. That's what the goal should be.
Sure.
And I think they did just that. They figured out some strategies that could definitely work against the Leviathans. They figured out some picks that can frustrate them. And it was just a good showing all around.
Jerry, do you want to talk a little bit about this set? I mean, you were sort of there, I guess. What were your thoughts as the coach of this team?
I was kind of there a little bit. I'll say that I think we actually played pretty bad. I think we had to improve the early game a lot, which was like a big weakness we had at the start of the season. But I think our mid game and late game is just honestly, we might be like the worst fighting team in SPL right now. I think the team would agree as well. Like, we have no idea what we're doing, to put it lightly. There's absolutely no coordination and chaos in fights, and it's like we don't have like a good plan going into fights. We just we would win if like one of our players fell off, because we have probably like the three best carries. I'll call Solo Lane as a carry, but
Sure.
they're not. But one of the best three individual players, and then two very selfless support and junglers. But we don't have a good leadership right now, which makes fights pretty hard. So that when we got to late game fights, I don't think we're playing the fights well at all. So we just weren't really gonna win that game.
Sure.
That's what it felt like.
Sam, your thoughts?
I'm not really going to focus on the Titans that much. I feel like it was a big week for Leviathans because it's the first time they played Yanis mid and Gilgamesh as well. If you look back at every other week when they've been open, they've never played them. They've banned Yanis from pretty much every side, and they've never played Gilga the week before either.
Sure.
So it's definitely interesting that they're expanding their god pools, because Leviathans had a thing last year, or since they've come into tournaments, where they've played the same 3 or 4 gods. They've picked from a tier list, kind of thing, and they've kind of expanded their god pool, right, which makes them a little bit harder to shut down. So I think it's good that they've pulled out extra picks right before playoffs, because it's going to make teams a little bit harder to figure out. It's going to make them hard to figure out.
Sure. So
I think it's definitely important for them to be showing that earlier on.
Yeah, a great point to bring up. I think a lot of people have sort of been harping on them that when it comes to playoff times, it's easy to figure out what they're going to draft and ban and things like that. And seeing them, as you say, deep in the god pool a little bit, I think is a good sign for them, especially going right into playoffs.
Yeah, I still think when we're drafting, we're they might pick Yanis. They don't usually play it, but they could always pick it. I think yes, even if someone doesn't play a top pick, you have to always have a small chance. What are you gonna do if they do pick it? You can't just always assume Dodge isn't gonna play Persephone, for example. I know he will never play it, so I'll say 100% he won't. But for other players, you have to always keep that small chance in mind.
Sure.
But yeah, now every team playing against them will keep that in mind more. They could just value Yanis as high as every other player.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Bolts versus the Valhalla Valkyries. I think this is sort of a bit of an important set. We see Baka, I think, for the first time in the SPL. That's one of Johnny's more signature picks, coming from the SEC last year, or SML last year. But, unfortunately, still not strong enough to deal with sort of this surging Bolts team. I don't think this Bolts team has ever looked better than they look right now. Taking wins off of top teams and bottom teams alike. Just a lot of pressure from the Bolts early on. I went back and sort of quickly skimmed through these games just before this, and they're just always having a gold lead and just pushing their leads whenever they can. Is it just another unfortunate situation for the Valks? I know we're going to talk about them looking a lot better against the Leviathans in the next game, but Bolts just sort of steamrolled them in this set.
It's just the Bolt style, right?
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, maybe it's rude to say, but I think Bolts have this unorganized chaos that kind of catches a lot of teams off guard. I think they're actually better than Dragons are doing it, in terms of Dragons will set up for invades and try and set out plans, and Bolts just kind of run it down. Like Lasper and Jake both want to make plays. Ven's quite selfless. Barrel will do whatever his team wants, and Haddix is quite aggressive, so they kind of just do stuff. And if you watch the fights back, they don't play it perfectly, but because they're the ones going in first and they're the ones setting the tempo and setting the pressure, and they usually pick quite heavy pressure comps, to be fair as well. But they're just the ones engaging. And Valkyries, who scrim, some EU teams, some NA teams, they won't be used to that. Now, you can't really be used to the Bolts playstyle unless you play against Bolts. It's very hard to deal with when they're just people coming at you constantly, not letting you do anything for free.
So even if you do scrim them against the Bolts, you're still not going to be prepared for them on game day, because they'll just have some crazy strategy or pick or fight that just catches you completely off guard. And like you said, with the Dragons, it's organized, it's methodical. You know what's going to happen, but you really can't stop it. With the Bolts, you don't know what's going to happen, and you can't stop it, because I think at times even they don't know what the plan's going to be in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, that is the enigma that is Awesome Jake, right?
I think first I'll talk about Valkyries quickly. I think Valkyries could have actually won. Well, they probably weren't gonna win, but I actually liked the draft a lot in the first game. I thought they had a good plan in mind. I actually like seeing Donnie on Baka and trying get something, bring something different to the table, try to kind of catch teams off guard with his carry playstyle. But he got first blood, and then he just did a really bad purple invade in the game. Just was basically lost from there. He went to invade purple and just died to Jake and Barra. Jungler wasn't even there, and he just died and lost his lead and was behind the whole game. So I think this team, honestly, even though they're losing a lot, I actually think they could be a good team. I think Rafford played sick on Gib as well. Well, that's later. That's the next game, but we can talk about that later. But yeah, I think this team can actually be good if they get to America, get to Georgia, and have some. I think it's not even the ping. It's just the mental will be a bit restored, and that's all they need to start doing better. And for Bolts, yeah, like Sam said, their playstyle is very weird. The way they invade and fight in general is very chaotic. But I think the weakness of that team is when people play aggressive against them, they don't really look good. I think if Dragons or Kings, they just start invading them, and that's why this team always wins against Leviathans. Maybe always wins is wrong word, but they have a pretty good track record against them from the last playoffs till now. And I think that's just because they can control the tempo against Leviathans. But I think if they play against a team that fights back early game, they don't nearly look as good when you put them under pressure, because they can't their chaos just becomes bad. Jake will just go 0-9. He's just dying without purpose kind of thing. And I think Ven as well and Lasper, all these players they die a lot naturally, so they gotta be playing together and invading if you don't want them to just start getting picked and dying. It's kind of how I feel.
They're talking a lot about pressure now. It kind of feels like some teams are maybe reverting back to holding off for late game instead of maybe doing a pressure snowball. I'm sort of just thinking in the last couple weeks of the SPL, it feels like there have been a lot more game 3s. There have been a lot more longer games where inevitably the game is decided by some late game team fight. Just in general, are we starting to see a bit of a shift toward in the play styles of teams in the SPL, or is snowballing pressure from early on still the best way to be active and win games?
I'm pretty sure it's because of crit, right? The lack of crit on hunters means the objectives can't get bursts quick. The hunters are just notoriously shit for doing objectives. Before, if you got a lead, you could 5-man group, do a fire giant in 7 seconds. Now it takes double that. I think that's for me, that's the problem. You just can't rush objectives like you could before. and it's just a lot harder bursting objectives, and the longer Fire Giant dances take, the more poke your frontline's taking from the enemy and from Fire Giant, and it just becomes a lot more difficult the longer it goes on. But that's the reason why I think it's kind of getting to where teams can kind of delay and just hold on Fire Giant as long as possible.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. I think that's sort of, the other side of the coin of the rise of the Bluestone Hunters, right?
There's also like really no securing mages being played right now, so that also like makes it harder for teams to commit to
true.
fire and stuff. But we have been seeing a lot more Serve the Jungle from some people, so maybe that's going to be meta to try and combat the fact that crit isn't in the game anymore, so people want to get like some starter items to help you with bursting FG. We'll see what happens this next tournament. I think things might switch up a little bit.
Yeah, and I'll be surprised if we also don't start to see maybe some basic attack-based junglers just trying to supplement some of the damage lost from hunters these days. Stuff like Nemesis, Bakasura, Ao Kwong even could start to rise in a little bit of stock.
Sure. All right, let's move on to the next set in Group A, which is the Leviathans versus the Valkyries. A bit of an upset alert here with the Valks taking game one. I think they've looked much better in the early game in all of the games in this set against the Leviathans. Obviously I think their backs were probably up against the wall, and this was maybe sort of their last gasp of even trying to get into the playoffs. I don't know if they could have made it even if they won, but they are sort of improving like we've seen sort of these other teams improve, namely the Oni Warriors and the Solar Scarabs. But then the Leviathans come through and sort of smash game 2 and 3 relatively quickly. What are you guys' initial thoughts on this? Is this good to see the signs of life from the Valkyries here?
It's good to see them actually convert the sparks of life into a win.
Sure.
But then some of the decisions that were made later on, specifically in game 2 and 3's picks and bans, were just a little bit more baffling than I would like to have seen. Like the final pick, Hebo, I get that they kind of felt like they needed a bit more magical damage in the 3v3 in mid, but you just put the Soul onto zeros and put the Chronos back into the duo lane at that point, pick more traditional jungler, something that can go a bit more toe-to-toe with the Gilgamesh, definitely just doesn't get outright countered by the Fenrir. And then, so I like the fact that they took Sobek. I don't mind the fact that they took Sobek over the Geb, even though Graf had a fantastic Geb in game number 1. But then game number 3, I feel like that's when they should have gone back to the Geb.
Why are these supports playing RDO? I don't know. Maybe it's just me being a noob, but I feel like it feels like she brings a lot, but in practice, it's not as much as you want her to bring from the support role. Can you talk a little bit about? I think we see like even Aurora playing a lot of RDO, which I know it's a bit of an Aurora god, but what's going on with RDO sort of in the support role now?
He's so dog, dude. I don't know why people are playing. I don't know why people are playing that character, dude. Honestly,
I think she brings some pretty good power spikes.
Okay.
At certain stages in the game where she's like kind of the best support. It's not. She does. I don't even think she falls off late game. Even though people say she do. I think the only reason is just because she's usually behind. Because most of the people play her really like just. I feel like the god is like really strong at some stages where people play her too aggressively and they just die. Like because they think they're stronger than they are.
Sure.
But I actually think people don't abuse her fights enough because like she kind of has like 4 abilities or whatever. Like she could just. She's really annoying. Like you just gotta play her to be annoying, I think, and like just get on the back line and buy time for your Solar to get in there.
Sure.
But I guess with how behind supports were, that doesn't really work that well right now. But we didn't even play it like that when we played it, so I don't know. I don't know how good it can be, but almost every time like a pick doesn't really work. The pick is bad sometimes, but a lot of the time it's just people don't play it well. You can make any bad pick work, in my opinion, if you just like play it perfectly. Which playing it perfectly could be easy, or could be hard, and that's what makes the character good or bad, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I can see it working out quite well, considering that AoE cripple field is probably the biggest detriment to ADCs that I've seen for a while.
Sure.
A lot of ADCs are being played these days, like the Chiron, Chernobog, Onher, Heimdall. Well, maybe not specifically Heimdall, but all the other ones, they sort of rely on their dashes to keep them safe in team fights and help them maneuver around and avoid damage.
Yeah.
So if you just blink in with that AoE cripple field, chances are they're not going to beat the cripple field like they would beat a Gerbolt or Sylvanas before it goes off. So you're going to have that time to do a bit of damage before they then go, oh, I need to beads to escape this next bit of damage coming in.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel personally.
She's
she
definitely
feels,
not OP.
unimpactful.
She's definitely not OP,
Yeah.
but I think she's like a good niche pick, bottom 2 sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. Once
Cool.
like
Tough
4 or
smiling
5 supports. Once
against
4 or
it.
5 supports are banned away from you, target bans, then you
That
can go
does
something like
happen,
Cerberus.
Like Ymir, Athena, Sobek, you know, they're getting banned quite a lot. Fafnir, there's Umoja. Like, sure, she's not better than any of those 5 characters, but maybe in the 6th spot, you know,
Sure.
up there with like Xing Shen or something.
Yeah.
Fenrir, I don't know.
Any thoughts on the Leviathans here, or was it sort of just another day at the office for them in games 2 and 3? You know, I'm looking at the kill spreads here, and it's like 18-5 in game 2 and 30-13 in game 3. And from what I remember, 30-13, I think probably is giving
Honestly,
a little more credit to the Valkyries. Than...
I thought the Valkyries were gonna win last game. I feel like they actually were having a really good game.
Sure.
Yeah.
And Zero's decided to like mega int. Like he died like I like you can probably make a compilation of how many times he got engaged on a mid and died. It was
Sure.
like he was playing ranked, running it down because someone stole his role. That's what it looked like. Like he was just running down mid, getting Fenrir ulted, dying, getting Fenrir ulted again, dying. He probably got Fenrir ulted like 6 times that game, and without bees, like let's not even count the times he bees. I don't know. He just like didn't care at all, and he just kept dying and forced his team to keep fighting. Like he had like 2 good plays I think early game where he like 1v2, then like did a lot of damage in one of the fights, but then like he just ended and like there was no chance they were coming back. But I think they could have won that game, but you know.
I'm pretty sure there was a
happens,
time where he came back to the mid lane and like 3 times in a row just got Fenrir ulted and killed by
Yeah.
the Leviathans.
Like I understand he was getting camped, but like he didn't care. Like he didn't like think about it. I felt like he was just like walking up to the wave every time and just like, well, it's like did the Emerald strat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts here on either the Leviathans or the Valkyries?
I think it's a good matchup with the Valkyries for the most part. Again, like Valkyries aren't the most aggressive early team. Valkyries don't make a lot of plays, so they don't really get punished for it. Leviathans are they're not an active team. They kind of, in my opinion, they're kind of like anti-pressure. They try and stop you doing stuff more than they do stuff themselves.
Sure.
And when Valkyries aren't doing anything themselves, it kind of means Leviathans can't really do much. That's game one. That was apparent in game 1. Game 2 and 3, and they've got the high pressure and they're kind of running around the map doing whatever they want. It's a bit different,
Yeah.
but
Well, I mean, they've got the exact same comp games 2 and 3. That's
yeah, the bans weren't the best from Valks for sure. But the tier ban is weird when they've got King Arthur, in my opinion. But it's just, Valkyries are on a different scrim there, right? They scrim different teams. Maybe they don't practice against Leviathans that much. It's hard to tell.
All right, let's move on to the last game of Group A here, which is the Bolts versus the Tartarus Titans. Again, I think we have Cherry here. You want to maybe give us a quick breakdown of this set here from your perspective, Cherry?
I think that set was better than I was more happy with it than the Leviathan set. Game 1 was really bad actually. I remember. Think like the Ares was doing too much. We kind of just didn't have an answer for it. I felt like I think our comp push is bad. I talked about it in when we were drafting and after. There's a better pick. I won't say what it is that me and Skay were like thinking of picking, but it was pretty risky. But it made a lot more sense with our team. But then we were like, yeah, we could just go Fenrir and it's fine. But Fenrir just doesn't make sense for our comp at all because like Fenrir wants to kill frontline, and we have Yanis and like we Umoja, and our comp just didn't make sense together. We were very conflicting ideas in the fight, so we never really killed anyone. I don't think we killed anyone late game if they were getting it like Yanis ulted or something, and that's not very reliable. And even when we did, like we just didn't have enough damage. Like Cyclone was hitting the tanks a lot, and they just were not dying because he's the only one doing damage to them. And he went Crypt build and he went Spectral as well, so it was kind of coffins there for us that game. And then second game, I think we were like, okay, let's just switch it up. Let's just go for a simple comp where like we're just gonna dive backline with Kama and Freya, Yanis. Like it was really liked our draft in the second game. But since I think like this game didn't matter for standings at all for anyone. We're guaranteed third already. They're guaranteed first.
Sure.
I think we kind of like we're taking it a lot more lightly. So like we're making it like you can see a lot more mistakes happening. And but I think it was a good game for us to like learn how to play these late game fights and for Scary to get to play Kama because he doesn't really play it often, which I think is one of his better characters actually. But I think it was like it wasn't a bad game. But you know, it was different because that game didn't really matter. So I'm not sure also how they were playing. But we definitely had like a talk after about what we want to change, and I think it was a pretty helpful game overall for like our next week.
Sure. It's been a long time since we've seen sort of Freya in the duo lane, and I think a lot of people were very happy to see Scary pick up the Camazotz, and he looked pretty good on it in game 2 as well. AJ or Sammy, have any thoughts on this set?
Titan should have won 2-0, I think. I watched the set by this morning. The game 1 was very back and forth. I mean, I think Titans and Bolts are both unorganized, but I mean, Bolts are more aggressive, but Titans do try and do stuff around the map sometimes. And there was one play which just highlights Jake's playstyle. He ults in. He blinks in and ults 3 people with no one else around apart from Venena, who's a Morrigan. He ends up dying, then gets his ult forced. The fight goes on. Titans get a Fire Giant on 5 people with the Umoja. In my opinion, that's game if they just play fight slow. There's a fight on tier 2, and then basically Bolts just run it down from there. But I think Titans win that game if they're just a better team with Umoja. And then game 2 as well, they had the advantage again. They had Freya, they had Yanis, they had really good strong carries. They just didn't play around set up well enough. So I just think it shows the Titans are doing really well. Bolts are again a really weird team because I don't think they're consistent enough right now. Because if they're running over some worse teams, but they're losing the early mid game to Titans, it's really weird to me that Bolts were playing so weirdly. Even if they're holding stuff, even if they weren't trying as much, that wasn't a good set by Bolts, and it was way better than I thought Titans would play against Bolts as well.
Sure. AJ?
No, I think Sam pretty much summed it up perfectly, and I think that this set gave both Titans and Bolts a chance to experiment a little bit. Bolts didn't really take the chance to experiment. They picked quite safe, quite meta picks, whilst Titans bringing out the Freya, bringing out the Camazotz, and I don't know. I'd like to see the Freya Fafnir duel in again. It kind of did work out well for most parts of it, even though the Fafnir did die 9 times.
Sure.
I think it still did work out quite well.
I don't know how a Freya Fafnir managed to get through the game versus Umoja Medusa, by the way. I don't get how that works.
I think that's
But,
just,
It's Cherry. It's all Cherry. That's how they got through.
That's weird to me. Jake's not the best Umoja player as well. That's one thing to know as well.
Sure.
Jake's only recently tried to add the Umoja to the God pool, unlike other people like Rongi, for example, who's the best Umoja. Jake's never really been a massive Umoja player.
Sure.
So that's them experimenting.
Freya will not be meta because she's really bad early game. So kind of have to be careful when you pick
she's too
her.
bad early.
Yeah, the problem is she's bad early and she's really easy to abuse as well. So like if you fuck up, it's over. It's not like other characters.
Yeah.
Where if you fuck up, you're still in the game. So.
Right. You wanna?
And there's no starter item that really speaks to me that says I want to build this on Freya. It's like, suppose that's decent on it. Yeah, I could get this, or it could just do what Cyclone Spin did, just not get a starter item altogether and go for something more towards the late game. It's awkward to manage the build as a Freya right now these days, I'd say.
Sure. Yeah, I was gonna ask about the Bumba Spear upgrade, and I imagine this is just you want the extra damage for Fire Giant, right? It gives extra basic attack damage now, or is that? I don't know. These things get changed all the time, right?
Cyclone was like, I'm gonna bag by Bumba's Spear and let's go do fire.
Sure.
That was basically the plan, and then we were going to do fire, and they picked Paul, and we never got to do fire, unfortunately. Like he died right before. Pretty sure we could have actually ended that game because Freya was so strong at that point. Like he had the 3 rings, and he was just like one-shotting everyone, like tanks and everyone.
Oh yeah.
Then we had to defend FC 4v5, and we lost FC, which sucked.
Does it double proc the Bumba Spear on a 1 and a 2? Because you guys did Fire Giant with Fafnir Freya in like 7 seconds or something without a good mage to do it. I feel like is it double proc? You know?
I don't think so. I don't remember Cyclone ever mentioning it, but maybe it doesn't. I just don't.
It
know.
might have been a Telg proc as well, but man, you guys did Fire Giant so fast in one of the games. Like it was the fastest I've seen since Creona's won the game.
we do try to one shot if Sheen scrims a lot. It's fun. Let's go frenzy. We'll just watch her with Bumba Spear and Seer of the Jungle next SPL set and fucking one shot if Sheen in like 3 seconds. It's gonna be great. Erling Bumba Spear with Freya. Wait, no, Erling Seer of the Jungle probably with Freya Bumba Spear.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just looking at it now. You guys did Fire Giant in 4 seconds with just Fafnir, Yanis, and Freya. So Yanis is dog at fire, right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
Freya's,
it's pretty awful.
if I'm not mistaken, Freya's hitting the Fire Giant for like must be over 500 North though with a Frenzy and a Fafnir 2 on her. So
The one in,
she's
the one
hitting
in two
hard.
must double proc Bumba Spear, because otherwise
I don't think it does. I think it was I think it might have been Telekines and
maybe.
Bumba's Spear proc. But they still hit insanely hard.
Sure.
The base damage on those two abilities is really good. I mean, Freya's really good late game. Everyone knows it, right? Like, if you can guarantee get Freya to late game, every single game, Freya will be meta. But it's just the early game with no escape outside of roll is the problem.
This week, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Sanford Soccer, the jungler for the Jade Dragons, to talk about Season 8 and how the team is feeling going into the Phase 1 playoffs. Check it out. Hey guys, I'm here with the jungler for the Jade Dragons, Sanford Soccer 2, to talk a little bit about Season 8, how the team is feeling going into the Phase 1 playoffs, and to talk about Sam's career a little bit on the whole as well. So Season 8, I think, it's been a little bit more topsy-turvy than you probably, wanted it to be starting out, especially with Herwin joining the team. Can you talk a little bit about that and, the challenges that maybe that has had on your season, or maybe it's a good thing for you guys to have, some ups and downs early on?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing, and maybe there's like weeks where we've been frustrated, but overall we haven't minded too much.
Mhm.
It's a little expected, and not to say that like Hurry or Tyler is like hard to deal with, but like he has like maybe more ideas and things like that than maybe another mid could bring, and just I think when you tend to have that, it'll just take a little more time to synergize with,
Sure.
because like maybe his ideas don't completely align with ours, and like sometimes we're going to be right, sometimes he's going to be right,
Mhm.
things like that, and kind of get a good gauge for like when people should be calling what, or other things like that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think the split really went completely like we wanted it. Obviously, you probably want to win every game
Right.
in ideal state, but it wasn't too bad, and uh, yeah, I mean, it's just like the first split, and it doesn't factor into like world seeding or anything like that. So
Sure,
might as
sure.
well be a split if any.
Yeah. Do you expect to like do a lot of experimentation in this first split because it doesn't have as much of an effect on worlds, things like that? Or was it just,
Yeah,
getting together with the team and being on the same page?
yeah, more getting together with the team, being on the same page. I don't know if we directly thought like, oh yeah, this doesn't have much impact, so let's like experiment more, and or not try as hard as for or anything like that.
Mhm,
It's just because it's like that, we just have that luxury.
Sure.
But yeah.
Yeah. You did mention Hurry being on the team, and I think a lot of these teams we saw the roster apocalypse video talk about like team environment being a good thing. So you've basically been on essentially the same team 2 years in a row with just one change. Can you talk
Yeah.
about Herwin's sort of influence on the team environment, and how that's affected you guys?
On the team environment,
Sure.
honestly, I don't know if it's specifically that different on the team environment in terms of like getting along and things like that.
Mhm.
Like we all got along really well with Ben or Twig.
Sure.
And I mean, we get along equally as well with Hurry, if not maybe more, I guess too.
Mhm.
But so for actual team environment, I guess it's pretty like similar in that sense.
Mhm.
I think or it's still like team environment, but it's not like, I guess, like, I don't know, team environment. I can just think of like kind of getting along, like how much fun you have in scrims and things like that. But
Sure.
also, I guess Harry just brings a couple maybe different components than Ben, in the sense of like maybe he calms a little more, has like I wouldn't say he has a better idea of how he wants to play. Maybe he just communicates a little better at times.
Mhm.
Because like, yeah, maybe that's like the big difference.
Sure. Given how sort of crazy the league has been, I want to say, especially the past 3 weeks, do you still feel
Mhm.
like there is like a defined top four and then a bottom four of the league, or does it feel much more fluid than that now, at least in your mind?
I mean, you'd have to say it feels more fluid for sure, at least compared to like the middle slash beginning of the phase,
Sure.
But I'd still say there probably is a defined like top and bottom,
Mhm.
even though maybe it might not be like as obvious in the playoff, I guess, bracket you could say, right? Because
Sure.
the group stage, a lot of like very strange things happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like if you had to like if I had to give you a team that I thought was better, like I'd still say the Kings are maybe better than like the Scarabs and the Warriors at the moment. But obviously they beat them and like it's not like they don't deserve their wins or anything, but I don't know. It definitely like closes the gap at the very least.
Sure.
And I think especially by the end of the season, there's a chance that it's really close or even closer. But I still think there's like a bit of it's not a huge gap, but a little difference,
Sure. A lot of people that I've been talking to sort of behind the scenes kind of feel like a lot of teams are still, just making mistakes and playing a little bit sloppy. Do
Yeah.
you feel the same way about that? And has basically this first phase been like who can make the least mistakes in a game, and that's usually who wins?
Mm, maybe to some extent, I'd say,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know if it's always that simple.
Okay.
Like, maybe for a team that's like pushing their leads and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
that's a lot of time going to be like an easy like thing to say. Like maybe for our team, right? If we're always getting ahead
Mm-hmm.
and then we just like make a few mistakes, throw our leads or whatever, it's like really easy to say that. But
Sure.
you can't just like kind of sit back and be like, oh, we haven't made any mistakes, so we're going to win.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know.
Sure.
Um, but even I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's always like I don't know if nice to think that like you just lose because of your mistakes rather than like people playing well. It's kind of like usually the mentality that a lot of the teams have, and I don't think it's
Sure.
necessarily incorrect, but yeah.
Okay. Last thing I sort of wanted to ask about season 8. How are scrims going? It's been a while since I asked about scrims, and usually I try to
Uh,
refrain from asking about scrims, but I think it's been a couple of weeks break between the SPL and things like that. Obviously for you know reasons that are well within their
yeah.
rights to take a break. But I just want to sort of like, how's the scrim environment going, especially now that playoffs and there's a tournament coming up and there's money on the line. Has it changed a little bit in the past couple of weeks, or has it just been sort of the normal scrim schedule and what you guys have been doing?
Yeah, I'd say I mean honestly at the beginning of the year or split our scrims were really awful.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think we were just losing a bunch and maybe not on the same page for a bunch of stuff. Making like really awful objective calls and like not doing things together. And everything just seemed like so like disjointed
Mm-hmm.
kinda.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kinda just ended up like winning our first couple SPL sets anyway, despite of that.
Sure.
But I think for sure definitely in the past like couple weeks we've had a just a I don't think it's like a scrim environment thing. It's just we kind of all like have just been maybe playing better on top of just like we've kind of maybe synergized a bit better too. So like I
Sure.
think overall scrims have just been going a decent amount better, yeah.
Yeah, it's good to hear, especially going into the playoffs, which is sort of
Yeah.
where I want to take this next.
Hmm.
I kind of want to give you an open-ended question here. What are your expectations? I'm assuming that you guys think you're going to win the whole thing, but
Yeah.
you guys aren't sort of qualified to the semifinals right away. You got to play through a couple of teams here.
Uh-huh.
So, what are your expectations going into this, first land of season 8?
Um I mean I kinda always I don't know if you have the expectation to win, but at least like have a really good shot to win. So expectations to definitely at least make finals. And I mean once you're there you kind of expect to win too, I guess,
Sure.
But I don't know. I don't think it'll necessarily be like easy or anything like that.
Hmm.
Maybe, but I guess like not auto qualifying to semis is not what we expected, but I don't think it's that bad either.
Hmm.
Just have to play an extra set and maybe it helps you a little like get into the groove of things too. But yeah, I think we probably expect to win.
Yeah, yeah. Did you expect to see so many of these like lower end teams? Like I'm thinking like the Oni Warriors and Solar Scarabs
Uh-huh.
and even the Titans, I think, have sort of maybe figured things out at least for their own team a little bit, and for them to make the Phase 1 playoffs, instead of teams like the Kings. I mean, obviously that must have been a shock, but is that something that might be problematic for you guys with these teams that people aren't expecting to do well, actually, taking games off of the higher end teams?
I don't know if I'd call it problematic, so to speak. I mean, obviously, it's like compared to games where teams don't take or those games off of higher seeds. Like, obviously, it's I guess like easier, you could say, but
Sure.
I don't think it's that problematic. I definitely am surprised. I guess it's the way the format works, and maybe it's like a little test format too. But
Mm-hmm.
like to see like the Warriors. I think they were a little eighth seed before the group
Right.
stage to going to first seed. It's a little like strange,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, like I mean, like I don't know if we want to be first seed, we just should have beat the Warriors, you know. So like it's nothing to really complain about. It's just it is a weird like thing though.
Sure. Sure. You think that previous lane experience has an effect in some of these midseason tournaments? Like I know that this one isn't the most important. I don't want to say it isn't the most important.
Uh
It's just, but the prizing is only sort of cash, right? This doesn't really affect
right.
world standing or phase two or some of the more important things that I think probably matter to you for your goals this year. So do you think
Uh
previous lane experience helps for these midseason tournaments, or how do you feel like that affects how you guys might play?
huh. I think it definitely doesn't hurt it. Obviously, I'd say it does help.
Hmm.
I guess you'd be comparing like newer players, like I mean, people like layers and like inbound. I guess inbounds maybe played some like qualifiers and stuff
Sure.
last year, but like they played like maybe tournaments on Xbox and things like that, so that can give them some kind of like experience.
Hmm.
But maybe it's not. I mean, I wouldn't say this isn't quite the same. Maybe this is probably pretty similar for them
Hmm.
and Browning too. But like I guess it's yeah. I don't know. I don't think it helps that much for this.
Hmm.
It's
Okay.
like nice, but like I think when it comes around to like Worlds or something, that's when it's like the most impactful, you know.
Sure. Sure.
But it's also online, you know. So like if it was like in LAN and stuff like that, then I think like that experience is more impactful
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I want to maybe broaden the scope here, talk about your career
Mhm.
on the whole a little bit. We haven't really talked that much since Worlds happened in January, so I just wanted to ask, what is it?
Yeah.
How does it feel to be sort of on the flip side of the deal as the main character, storyline that we have here?
Um, I mean, you know, it's not the best feeling, but it doesn't mean he's the main character. That's all I'm saying, you know. Sometimes the main character falls down, you know. It's a good story arc. You don't want to win the whole time.
Sure, that's
Like
true.
nobody wants to see that story.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, it's always a big bummer to lose,
Mhm.
especially like a huge tournament like that.
Yeah.
And maybe it takes like a little time to get over it.
Mhm.
But that's also just the nature of competing. You know, you kind of have to be able to deal with those losses if you want to be able to get back up to like winning and things like kind of like I said. I mean, you're just not always. I mean, maybe maybe you do always just win, but like
Right. Right.
even still, like somebody like Neo and like people on like SK or PK, you know,
Mhm.
um, we dealt with a lot of losing throughout the season, you know,
Definitely.
even though we were winning worlds. So
Mhm.
like you kind of just have to be able to deal with it at some point, either like one way or another, if you want to stay up there. So
Sure.
it's kind of part of competing, yeah.
Yeah. I hate to really think that you guys are cursed, because of the rival, ghost thing. But at some point, it does sort of, maybe I don't even want to say it's a burden, but it's got to be like nagging you a little bit in the back of your head. Does that voice ever get like bigger during some of these world's tournaments or things like that, or is that just something that the fans blow out of proportion all the time?
I mean, I'd probably just say it's blown out of proportion. I mean, for me, like, I mean, I've never even really thought about it or considered it, and I mean, I've only played, I guess, one like season on that team, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and just one lost worlds in the finals, and I think like for everybody else on our team, it was only like two worlds in a row to lose, you know, like
Sure.
because the rival Chris was like a full different team, you know, it was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I guess technically it carried over the org, but like I don't know if you really consider yourself part of that until like you're actually on the team, you know.
Sure. Sure.
At least I don't.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's maybe similar, but like even then, like I don't know. If the curse is to get to finals every year, I don't think it's that bad. But I
Sure.
mean, obviously you want to be
Yeah.
winning.
Yeah. All right. Now that you're a bit of a veteran in the league, you've been in the league maybe 2.5, almost 3 years now. Do you have,
Mhm.
any advice that you might give your former self, or, the Sanford Soccer from 3-4 years ago that was grinding SEC or grinding ranked or whatever?
Uh, I don't know, honestly. I'm not sure I do have any. Um, I don't know. Maybe maybe I could have tried like a little more in some aspects, like
Sure.
do more like Vadaru and things like that.
Mhm.
But I don't know too much because a lot of like I don't know. A lot of the improvement is just kind of experience that you have to get under belt rather than like
Mhm.
a set of advice that can just help you like cheat the system type of thing, you know?
Sure,
So
sure.
I don't know if there's too much I could really say to be honest.
So just grind is your advice.
Yeah, I mean, guess that's what happened. So
Yeah, yeah. All right, Sam. I want to thank you for doing this interview, and of
Mhm.
course, now's the time when I ask, if you got to shout out anyone, or if you want to call out anyone, or scrims going bad might always not be your team's fault. It could be some other team's fault. So feel free to you know throw some shade on someone if you need to. The floor is yours, Sam.
Yeah, I don't know about any shade on other teams, but I don't know, just of course, like shout outs to everybody like supporting me and the Dragons and everybody on my team, of course, it's always really appreciated and um I don't know, I guess like shout outs to you for your show and
Appreciate it.
maybe that's all,
All right, Sam. Thanks a lot for coming on, and like Sam said, support our boys. It's shop.smiteproleague.com. You got to grab the merch, and
Oh yeah,
be sure
true.
be sure to support all the players in the SPL. And thank you again so much, Sam. I wish the best of luck for you and your team in the future.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Group B games here. Let's start with the Jade Dragons versus the Solar Scarabs. I think game one is a game that me as a Solar Scarabs fan is just going to forget completely. Jade Dragons basically wiped the floor. But game two, Bobby pulls out this Herc, and, we see a great game from the Solar Scarabs to even up the set. And then they, I think, even fought into it in game three. They controlled much of the early and mid game, and just a little bit of unfortunate shot calling at the end there leads to their demise and going up against the Dragons. I keep on saying this Solar Scarabs team just gets better and better and better every week. Zap even pulls out the Zuler here because of all of these Bluestone ADCs. Of course, we'll talk about the Scarabs making playoffs a little bit later, but I think a good showing from the Scarabs, and they really gave the Jade Dragons a run for their money here.
I want to see Lairs continue to play more of these bruiser-style junglers rather than going for these full damage squishy ones like this on. I think he looks a lot more comfortable going for stuff like the Ratatasker and Ravana. Just keep giving him that stuff every day. Allow him to be more resilient in the middle of these team fights, and Solar Scarab's going to do extremely well.
I think Lairs has been pretty consistent this whole year, which is pretty surprising, honestly. Like, usually when new junglers come into SPL, they look really bad for like a phase. If I remember correctly, I don't remember any jungler like coming like the first phase and just popping off. Usually they like struggle for some time getting adjusted and stuff because it's a very like different role. But I also think like I feel like junglers this year they're not really punished. Like I think other than Twig, none of the junglers really try to punish other junglers.
Mm.
I think Twig is the only one that does it. So I think like when you're not playing against Twig, I think junglers get a lot more like space to kind of like make mistakes. The Scarabs played pretty well. I actually think Scarabs like weakest player is just Zap right now. I don't know why he's refusing to ever beat Arthurald. If I'm playing against this, if whoever plays Scarabs, I'm just gonna like give them 3 OP characters to get Arthur because he just refuses to beat. I've seen him like happen way too much, even against Nika. I don't know if it was the week before. I think it was
yeah.
like just takes like 1k damage every fight because he doesn't want to beat it, and it's like, and I think that's also why they lost that one of the last fights. To Dragons, I think Final K just managed to ult Zap at the Phoenix, and he just like died before. Like he just beats Aegis 1 HP, and he just died. So it's kind of weird. Like if he could just beat it, I think they'd actually like because Lage was doing really well in fights and Veronica as well in the last game. I actually thought they could have held that Phoenix, but like Sam was also having a pretty bad game. And it's pretty good that they won because like I actually think Dragons were playing pretty bad. I think Dragons have been playing bad for a while, in my opinion. Like I think they haven't really looked good at all this year. Like maybe for like 1 or 2 weeks when everyone was like kind of new, like new in SPL and stuff, they looked good. But like they should be like happy that they got to like qualify as easily as they did. Because I think if like Kings played them again, I think Kings would actually win. But you know that's a discussion for another day. But Scarabs are improving a lot. I mean, we'll see it obviously from the next set as well. Like but I also think all the teams are. Like maybe it's easy to say as a coach because I'm like watching the games and not getting to see them as a player, but I feel like every team is just really playing really bad right now. Like most teams every team could be so much better, and I think obviously that's like a downside of playing online and ping and stuff. I also think because no one is really that good, that teams don't have to play that good. You know, like let's say if Dragons were winning every game, all the other teams would be doing a lot more to try and improve to reach that level. But when everyone's like playing a 6 out of 10, there's no reason for anyone to like try and get to an 8. You know, everyone's just like, yeah, we're just at 5. We're not that far away, and everyone's kind of like sitting at that like stage, in my opinion. But it could just be my opinion because I'm a coach, and you obviously see a lot more mistakes when you're watching compared to when you're playing. So
Yeah.
Like right now, there's no real reward for pushing up to your maximum. You're just showing teams what your upper limit is before you get to the meaty stage of the season at World.
yeah, like I don't think that's how people see it specifically. I don't think people are like, we're not gonna try to be that good so people don't think we're that good and like try to prepare for us. I think it's more like there's like like Leviathans or let's say Leviathans are the best. They're not right now. I guess technically Bolts are like content with being the best. Like it's not gonna. They don't have to do that much more to keep winning, for example. So they're just like we're already the first or second seed. Like we're fine. But if there was a team that was just like the best right now, everyone would be trying a lot harder to like catch up to them. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Any final
Do you agree,
thoughts?
Sam, that teams are like not playing that well so far this year? Like everyone's kind of just
Yeah, hat off.
not good.
I definitely agree. Like this season, whilst the SPL has looked the most competitive it's ever been, it's also down to the fact that teams have been making a lot more mistakes, more so than they have been doing in previous seasons. In some previous seasons, there's been games that have looked completely clean from one team. You couldn't really point out many major incidences where you would say you need to change that, otherwise you'd lose that game 9 times out of 10. This game, you can pick a game at random. The team that won probably had 2 or 3 options to lose that game, and that's kind of rare, I'd say, for the SPL. But it's also making it, this competitive ground where anyone seems to beat anyone.
It's more fun for sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts here, or should we move on to the next set for this group?
Just a good adjustment by Scarabs, really. They seem to have a good matchup into Dragons, which is really weird to me.
Yeah.
But they did well
I
against
don't
Dragons
know.
last time.
It's
I don't
the
get.
Zap effect, I guess.
I don't get it personally. I think they're mentally out. They lost to Zap twice. Is the only reason
No
I
one
can
likes
see.
losing to Zap.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next set here of Group B, which is the Camelot Kings versus the Oni Warriors. And Genetics here, you kind of lose game 1, and the Oni Warriors look strong. I think they basically controlled it from sort of the kickoff there, but games 2 and 3 sort of right in your bag, easy for you. And you basically pull out the Terra, which I think might be one of the first times you've played it in the SPL.
Terra's OP.
Can you talk about what you like about Terra and why you brought it out in back-to-back games here in games 2 and 3?
Well, I'm the best Terra in the league.
Sure.
Nobody really plays her. Not a lot of other sports know her matchup. She's insanely safe. She does a lot of damage. She's good for going in. She's good for getting out. She's good for peeling. She's good for engaging. I just think she's a good all-round character. Not a lot of weaknesses. And I mean, I'm getting 3 of the gods banned against me. I mean, I'm kind of limited in my picks on the ping anyway,
Sure.
so that's why Terra was picked. It just. I mean, yeah, that's all. She's a good. She's good. She's a good god to pick, and there's not really a lot of counter picks she can go. She's not like she doesn't lose matchups. She doesn't win them, but she doesn't lose them. So
Yeah,
Just a good solid all-round character.
you already talked a little bit about animosity as well, and then just doing more damage from the enhanced Terra autos when your stones are up, right?
Yep.
Yeah. But I imagine it was a little bit concerning for you to sort of lose game one. It seemed pretty convincing from the Only Warriors. Can you talk a little bit about how that match maybe got out of hand for you guys?
I disagree with saying it was in their favor. We were ahead 3k at the early game that game. We pulled a Pyromancer. We baited it, saying we were, and they poked our Fenrir into half HP, and I stupidly blinked on a full HP Discordia Gilgamesh and got one shot. Had I just waited for the team to go on the Fenrir, it would have been free. We'd have been had 4k that game. I just think when we got to late game, when you have an Ares against a Chiron, you kind of intend to win the game earlier on. Otherwise, I think late game when your Ares can't blink in, it's very, very hard to play against. And they had a really good dive versus a Ra as well. Ra Chiron versus Cullen Fenrir. Gilgamesh will never win the fight. So I just think they had a better comp than us. They probably outdrafted us in hindsight. But yeah. And then games 2 and 3 were easy.
Sure. The other thing
Honestly,
go ahead, sorry.
Dodis looks sick on the Ra though. Like I was
Yeah.
pretty happy that he like just picked it and managed to like they perform really well. They kind of threw that. Well, it's not like they threw that game. I think they were doing really well. Then they did that Go Fury call, if I remember, and they just like. Is that what happened? They pulled the Go Fury and they like fucked it up really hard, Sam?
Yeah, they pulled the goal through and we got a triple Gilgamesh ult into a triple Medusa stun, I think, or double Medusa stun. They threw game 2 harder than we threw game 1, I think. But yeah, I said after the game, I said I bet that's how people feel playing against Big Man, because Big Man hits his raw snipes a lot, and Dardis hit like 3 or 4, just randomly killing someone. And it's just, what do you say after you get hit by a raw ult for 800? You can't really say much.
Just get annoyed because you're like, I didn't even see it, man. I didn't even get to do anything.
You can't say it's lucky. He hit it raw, you know.
You can't even say raw ult down because it's going to be up in 2 seconds again.
Yeah. Very low base CD. But then they played really well game 2 and game 1. I thought they played really well. I just think game 3 was their worst game.
They just the troll way too hard to endure. There was no coming back from there. Like I would say let's just like dial again. Let's just do it if game 3.
We got like 7 kills them or something, I think, in the first 10 minutes in duo. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they were 0-13. So
yeah.
And I did solo vote MBK, so it was a fantastic.
That's a win for all the support players out there, right? Getting the solo a carry.
Like Chiron Terra is just a nasty dual lane to go against.
Sure.
It just has so much poke potential and so much control that you have to give up pressure in it unless you intend to kill the Terra the second she steps up, which you just can't do because the Chiron's there basically killing you as well, and you don't have the kill comp.
Yeah, I was saying they just lose pressure super hard. I was like with Hazer on stream, and he was like, "No, they can actually fight back." I just feel like Soul takes way too long to start like doing damage with her passive, like. Like by the time she's about to start hitting you hard, she's already like just lost the fight. I feel like I think they should just like sat back and just lost lane gracefully, maybe lose a purple and live to fight another day. They have Neathod, so they can win that side of the map eventually with like a good rotation, or just trying to kill Sam maybe at some point. But they fucked up too early to like have that be relevant at all.
Yeah, I'd say give up first purple buff and then hope. Have a plan to contend the second spawn of it once everyone's above level 5.
I just think I just don't think people like giving a bust versus Terra. She's all like for the last 6 seasons she's been notoriously a low pressure pick, but in this meta, well, it's a falsehood, right? When Terra hits level 3, she's arguably one of the highest pressure gods in the game. But people like before, right, when there was like level 1 invades in duo and stuff like last year at Worlds, Terra would have been bad, but when level 3 is all that matters in duo, then Terra's like fine pressure wise.
Also, don't think Default is picking Sol again. I'd be very surprised if he picks it again for like a couple months.
It doesn't seem like a vote pick too much, and I think even
like the Raijin game last year, like it.
Oh no! Don't remind me.
We'll see. Who knows?
Even before level 3, I think Terra's extremely strong right now because of ADC's building Bluestone. You just clap somebody, then your ADC dumps most of their kit into the stun target. It's free. 80% of their health is gone most of the time.
Yeah, also with the buffs to her passive and like her autos and stuff, like she's definitely a bit underplayed, but there isn't really any Terra mains in SPL other than Sam, I know everyone likes it, but I just don't think it works with the way we're playing right now. So it's probably not gonna happen for a little bit.
Well, either Sam forces everyone else to start playing it, or she stays as a pocket pick.
Meta breaker here.
I did play I think I played 25 Terra games in the week before, include in scrims and in ranked. So I was definitely warmed up for the game.
Next, can you talk a little bit about supports building damage? I think we've seen it basically on almost all the supports in the past week group stage. They all either are going for Divine Ruin or Spear of Desolation or even Spear of Magus sometimes. Is it just not worth it to get extra protections at the end there, or what's going on? Why are we seeing all these supports pick up damaging items?
So there's a few different reasons. So first off, there's Janus, right? Janus is a god that doesn't want to build Divine. They want to build Spirit of Magus. The Spirit of Desolation. They want to build Coin, Soul Gem. They don't want to build Divine ever. They don't apply it very well. So a lot of supports are having to build Divine for their Janus. Pretty much everyone. Then there's also the gods, right? So let's say Terra, massive AoE ult, going to hit 3 or 4 people. Fafnir, when Fafnir applies his 2 on someone, Divine procs off the damage. Okay. So that's what you see on Fafnir. And then you saw the Pythags, right? Like the Pythags was to do objectives with. So there is a few ideas for it. I'm trying to think of other instances where people built Spirit of Desolation. Yamoja, people build Spirit of Desolation because it works with Hiromi. Right. So you get 2 seconds off of each of your first 3 abilities, which is 6 seconds. So you get 6 seconds worth of Omi per 5 back if you get a killer assist. So when you scale to late game, you basically get a free 1 every single time someone dies. So there are loads of different reasons, but I think Thieves' Power Spike with tank boots is just so strong that tanks have this 5 to 10 minute stage in the game where they can get away with anything, and then try and abuse it, and then after that they're just paper. So I think people are just trying and enjoy how OP they are early game. Okay. In my opinion.
Sure. Perry, AJ, any thoughts on supports picking up damage, or did Sam do it justice?
It should probably happen more often in general, I think.
Long may it continue, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in general support should always try to pick more damage. I don't see a reason why not. At some point being tanky doesn't really do much, where if you had some more damage it would be nice. Especially items like Divine and Desu. I think Divine is just really underbought as well on supports because I feel like it makes it so annoying for it makes it hard for ADCs to lifesteal 3, which I feel like is a big part of their survivability in general.
Sure. Let's talk about the Oni Warriors upsetting the Jade Dragons here. I think the Jade Dragons look fairly good in game 1, but the Oni Warriors, bring it back in games 2 and 3 and end up taking the set here. I did want to point out that Sam played Mulan Jungle, at least in game 2. I don't know if he played it in game 3 as well. Did he play it in game 3?
No,
he didn't.
No, he didn't.
But, doesn't seem to be the pick, Mulan Jungle. And Nika has just been looking really strong. I think, especially this past weekend, has probably been the best he's looked so far in the SPL. Just some good late game fights from the Oni Warriors here to take the set in games 2 and 3. What are sort of your initial thoughts about the Oni Warriors versus the Jade Dragons?
I actually think Nika looked like the best solo laner so far. I mean, that's probably a little bit of bias, but I actually think he's looked like easily the best player on this team, and I'd say the best solo laner, maybe Haddix
sure.
And Harry had pretty good days as well, but I think Nika's been for how bad his team has been playing, he's been pretty good for considering the circumstances. And this week, just Fred stepped up a lot compared to his.
Oh yeah.
Just the whole of SPL, he's been looking unfortunately to say the worst jungler in the league for a while. Ping and everything and mentals shattered and stuff, but he brought it all back this week and played really, really well against Sam and Twig, which I would say are the 2 best junglers right now in the league. I mean, Peloton obviously as well. So yeah, he had a really good performance, and Doritos also finally looked good on the Morgan when he picked it. He's been saying this god, he can't really play with high ping and he's been struggling with it, but he picked it and showed up, and the Dagny just randomly came out and he had a really good performance. There was a lot of big clutch plays from everyone from Oni Warriors in game 3, and that's what you like to see. That's what brings the team back, I think, from shadowed the mentals for sure.
Sure.
This was definitely the best I think we've seen Cubo Fred play this entire season by some level. I mean, we're all ignoring game one here. I think game one just consigned to the books as well.
Sure.
But games 2 and 3 definitely looked a lot stronger. They looked like cohesive team once again. Going back to some more comfort picks of his, the Serket is something that we've seen Cubo pick up time and time again. I really want to see him play a bit more often. Just unfortunate that Serket is okay right now. She's not fantastic, but she's not garbage either. She's one of those picks that's just below sort of some of the better junglers out there. It definitely was a risk for them, I'd say, to give up some picks like Tiamat and Tsukiyomi in game number 2, as well as the Chiron in the solo lane, the Chiron in the dual lane. Sorry. But then they just brought it back. They showed that those risks were calculated and worth taking.
Yeah, I think Cubo Serket looked really good. He basically, I think, won them the game in game 3 with a great, jumping into the backside of a fire giant and taunting a bunch of Jade Dragons and setting up for his team there to end up and win the game there. So I think Cubo definitely has looked a lot better. I think we saw sort of an inkling of this a couple weeks ago when he was playing a bit more Robin and things like that, and just feeling more impactful around the map than we've seen, at least early on in Phase 1. And this is the perfect time, I think, to get hot a little bit, right, going into playoffs. So good to see Cubo stepping up here.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe I've got some hot takes, but Dragons should have easily 2-0'd them in the first 2 games off of how the early games went. Dragons just aren't that clean late game. I've always thought it, Dragons mid-early game is top 3 easily, but their late game is not even top 4. You can see that with the fact they lost with Tiamat minions. I mean, when we played Tiamat, I can tell you there was about 6 pros in Discord saying the god should be removed. And when Dragons played it, they didn't do a single thing with it. Sure. They are good at doing stuff, but if they're not good at planning, then I think they showed they weren't the most comfortable people on Tiamat as a team there. Game 3 was just Only Warriors game to win based off comps. I think Athena or Wheelix was a really weird combo. I guess they were against Honor Serket, but I don't know. I think Dragon should have 2-0, but they're not playing clean. I just think it's again, even though Only Warriors won the set, I think it's just more focus on Dragons. That this is the worst we've seen a team with, the Panda Cat PBM on it for the last 3 years now. We've always seen them as favorites. They're just not the favorites anymore.
Sure. They look very beatable by almost anyone in this league, I think.
Yeah.
This is the set that made them look the most mortal out of all of them, because if you have Tsukuyomi, Tiamat, and Chiron with the state that all 3 of those gods are in right now, and you lose with those 3 picks combined, you know that something is fundamentally wrong. Like that should be an instant win if it gets anywhere near the late game.
Yeah, just a really scrappy set, I think. But I do think Only Warriors have a good matchup into Dragons again. Like, I think it's quite a good matchup for them, but just Dragons just not looking too hot. I don't know if I'm saying this, I didn't make playoffs, but the point still stands.
All right, any final thoughts on this set here before we, I think, go to the set of the week here? The reason I wanted to talk to someone from the Kings, of course. So, of course, the last game of the group stage here was the Solar Scarabs versus the Camelot Kings. And game 1, I think, was, none of these games were easy for, I think, either team, but the Solar Scarabs do have a big upset and, take games 2 and 3 in this set. Next, I think we need to sort of start with you here. I think game 1, it looked like you probably could have won this, or game 1 you guys did win this game, but it wasn't as easy, I think, as you probably would have hoped for. And then games 2 and 3, things sort of go off the rails. I think Baronic played really well on the Tiamat here. Looked, putting out a bunch of damage, especially in game 3. He looked really stellar. What are you guys' thoughts? At least let's get Genetic's thoughts here first on how these games went and, what you guys can learn from them, maybe.
Yeah. So I think Scarabs played really well. However, I think we deserved to 3-0 them. I thought every game was in our favor. game 1 was really close, and I think it was super weird, right? So they play full physical, more magical, which means I can rush Sov. They have to run the early game with full physical because it falls off late game. I mean, Fenrir is one of the best physicals late game because you can build him and play him more like a guardian, but still, full physical is typically not that good. They didn't pressure us early game. I mean, game 1 we were pressuring them. Game 2 we first blooded. I think we first blooded Zap. No, I don't know. But we just pushed them early game, against full physical, which is really unusual. I just think they played late game quite safely and quite calm. Was their biggest strengths this week. Also, I think Baronic getting Tiamat was probably a mistake. He actually was a good Tiamat. They didn't abuse minions, I don't think, that much, but his positioning was really good, and I think they are quite good at juggling aggression between their frontliners to where it's difficult to pull objectives, is what I'd say. You see that in the third game as well with King Arthur and Kuzenbo. They were very good at juggling who was taking poke and who was engaging and who they were diving on. And I think that's one thing that Scarabs definitely deserve credit for and why they won the set against us,
Sure. Also a bit of luck, I think, that game 3 Fire Giant steal from Solar Troll with the King Arthur one. I've never known the King Arthur one to do that much damage in the late game.
It wasn't luck. I think Netroid's ult was late, so the Medusa ult hit after Fire Giant died.
Unfortunately.
They still might have been stolen anyway. I mean, we didn't really have great secure with Agni and Medusa. That's the meta, but it's like a 99%. If we were to run it back, would we do it again? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But they stole it.
Cherry, AJ, what are your thoughts on this set?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought Kings will win. Not everyone. A lot of people thought Scarabs could win, but I thought Kings were just a better team. But yeah, some unlucky plays here and there. You can always say unlucky, but obviously mistakes happen as well. But I didn't really like the Nua from Big Ben. I think Big Ben just plays a lot better on characters where he can there's just Big Ben gods. You kind of just know, when you Merlin, Ra, even Discordia I felt would have been kind of better. I don't think that's why they lost at all, but I just don't think he can do as much as he can with characters like Nua. And the last game, the FG steal kind of brought Scarabs back in the game, and they had a really good late game comp. All their characters are really good late game. Tsukiyomi, Hyman, Tiamat probably three of the best carries late game.
Sure.
Kazembo, even though he kind of sucks, mainly I'd say if he gets late game, he's actually pretty good. He's just really easy to play late game where you kind of have a simple plan of what you want to do, so you can buy a little space for your team. So they didn't really have troubles in the late game after they got the fire. So it was kind of fucked for Kings after that.
Sure.
Yeah, not too much to say on this set. I think Cherry and Genetics have covered it pretty well. Either team could have come away from that set with either a 2-0 or a 2-1. I think it was that close in the games, and I think it highlighted a little bit of a flaw with how the schedule was forced to go into this, because as everyone was saying, Kings have performed extremely well throughout the entirety of the first half of the split, and then just a couple of unfortunate sets happen, and they're no longer in the playoffs, which is a big shame. But two teams had to not make it, and that unfortunately one of them was the Kings. It's just luck of the draw, I suppose.
Sure. Was there anything in the set that maybe surprised you guys from the Solar Scarabs? Especially I imagine, in the late game, are there, how does that work out? Because it is sort of on a knife's edge, really, where it can go either way. Was it something that maybe you guys were surprised by, or was it just, the way the chips fall sometimes?
I'm not sure. I think it's hard for me to try and be nice. I'm really struggling to be nice, because obviously I'm salty that I lost. Sure. So I'm trying to say things in a nice way. I think Scarabs played late game way better than I thought they would. I've always thought they'd be a team that would try and run it down early, and they did that. They did that actually very poorly compared to what I thought. With full physical, you want to be running it down. They didn't do that, so they played worse early game than I thought. But they played way better mid and late game. And I think Inbounds had a historical problem where he's usually got picked quite a lot, and I think as the set went on, that happened less and less to the point where he wasn't even getting picked at all. And especially when we weren't pressuring the map properly, it was perfect, right? Like we got like a tier 1 of Pyro, a gold, another tier 1, but we didn't get any kills. So all we got is a gold lead. We didn't really get that much of an XP lead. And as long as the support's not dying, it was very hard for us to pull an objective like we were.
Yeah.
So I just think they played late game a lot better, and they were just very respectful of dying to our comp. I just think they played late game really well compared to usual.
Sure. Any final thoughts from any of you guys about this set? No, I'm very happy that the Solar Scarabs, of course, won, but
I mean, yeah, not to take it away from Scarabs, they obviously played really well. Like,
Yeah.
players have been improving a lot. All the players have been playing really well, but yeah, like they basically just got together like a free mid Phoenix after that steal, because I think Sam ended up dying because obviously Ares kind of hard to like escape after you're in the fire pit when your whole team is trying to dip. So they killed Sam. They got a mid Phoenix, and I think no team should. It happens a lot more than it should, but no team should lose a game when they have a Phoenix up when they have EFG, because of how easy it is to get the Phoenixes if you play coordinated enough.
Yeah.
And they didn't fuck up that part. They just like, you know, it was like easy win from there. But yeah, if the FG still, but like just to like they still got FG before that. That like they got an FG before that one on their own. You know, like of Kings messing up and Scarabs playing well. So it's not like the game wasn't like they just got really lucky. Like they still played well and they deserve to win at the end of the day.
sure.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's move on to talking about the playoffs here for a little bit. I know there's only going to be 2 games which we can really make picks for, because 2 teams have basically auto-qualified into the semis. I think it's a bit surprising that we see the Oni Warriors qualify all the way to the semis, but I think that's just sort of how it goes. They were able to, beat I think they had the best record in their group, right? 2-1, maybe tied with the Jade Dragons there.
Yeah, they did. So the Oni Warriors and Jade Dragons both had 2-1. But the Oni Warriors had a better plus minus.
And I think they won the head-to-head as well, right?
Yeah, they won the
Yeah.
head-to-head. Yeah.
So I don't know, a bit surprising to see them there, but I think deserve to be after this group stage, and of course the Bolts are through to the semifinals as well, which I know many people probably didn't expect that at the beginning of the season, but just taking the last 3 weeks into account seems to make sense. So I think we should maybe just start with the 2 quarterfinals games that need to happen, and maybe you can give your picks for who you think will win. Let's start with the Leviathans versus the Solar Scarabs. The Scarabs coming off of this huge win against the Camelot Kings. AlphaJackal, you want to start us off here? What do you think is going to happen in the set, and who you think is going to win?
I don't know. It seems to be that it's going to be a battle of do Solar Scarabs get off to a good start versus the Leviathans, or do Leviathans manage to weather that sort of early game storm and get into the mid and late game where they show their prowess? And it is going to come down to the picks and bans for me in this game. Whether Solar Scarabs really do get a much stronger comp in the early game and whereabouts they sort of play their lead. But overall, I think the Leviathans should take this one. I'm going to say 2-1 Leviathans.
All right. Cherryo, how about you? Who you got in this one? Leviathans versus Scarabs.
I think I'm gonna go with Leviathans. I think it depends because
Sorry, it's a best of 5. Sorry, I didn't realize it's a best of 5.
Yeah, I
3-1.
think they'll probably 3-1. I think that's like the safe bet, but at the end of the day, the Violets haven't really done well at any playoffs. Like not even win. Like they haven't really done well. They've had like similar performances like us last year in playoffs. I would say like where they don't really do that well. Like they've got they were in semifinals and they didn't win their set, and then the other time they were in quarterfinals and they didn't make it to semis. So I don't know how they will do against Scarabs, but I think they should have a good matchup against Scarabs in my opinion, because Scarabs try to play early game and stuff, but I don't think they do it as well as like Bulls with Dragons, for example. And their late game is like, it's not bad, but it's not the best. Like it's just up, it's like a middle of the pack kind of late game. So I think Leviathans should have this set, but I wouldn't be surprised if, I don't know, if Leviathans have like a mental block at playoffs where they get nervous or something. I'd be very surprised because I feel like they're a pretty confident team now, but maybe it's just not meant to be for them to win playoffs. We'll see. But I think they got this, and I think they're gonna end up like winning 3-1
Sure.
or maybe 3-2. Maybe it'll be a really close set to watch. We'll see.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Sam, how about you? Who you got in this set? Leviathans versus the Solar Scarabs.
If it was normal split with what's just happened, I'd say 3 Leviathans really easily. But there's a few different factors, right? So Leviathans, like Cherry said, haven't played as typically as well on like events as they haven't during the split. Zapman does traditionally better, so you've got one team doing worse, one team doing better. But I just don't think Scarabs pressure the map chaotically enough early game to catch Leviathans off guard. And I think I'm pretty sure Scarabs have kind of exposed their picks off of picks and bans now. I don't think Zap's getting Heim again, and I don't think they're going to win without it. So I'm not sure. I think if the Leviathans do the correct picks and bans, I think they're just going to have 3 of them. To be honest with you, and I don't really think that Rongyu's not really the kind. Rongyu's extremely good at playing anti-pressure. He's very good at defending against teams and being on time for buffs. He's never in the wrong spot. So I think Scarabs will just try and go for invades and back off every single time until they eventually lose the late game. As I think 3-0 Leviathans.
3-0 Leviathans. You know, I'm obviously rooting for my Solar Scarabs here, so I'm gonna go 3-0 for the Scarabs. You know, can't.
Fair enough.
I've been burned, man.
Fair.
Voting against the Scarabs, you know, and when you vote against a team and then they win, you know, that feels very bad, especially if you're a supporter. So I gotta give them my props. All right, let's move on to the second quarterfinals here, which is the Jade Dragons versus the Tartarus Titans here. Cherry, why don't we start with you on this one? What are your thoughts on this match and this set? And I imagine you think the Titans are gonna make it through.
I mean, I have to, right? Otherwise, what kind of coach am I? We'll see how scrims go this week. When we're recording right now, we still have like 4 scrims left. We're double scrimming one day just because we need the practice, really.
Sure.
Basically, what we're focusing on, we just want to have like we're doing the old shackle strat. You just shackle yourself for a tournament. You don't try to limit your picks. Don't go too crazy. Make sure you have a simple plan in mind to like try to limit all the variants you have in the middle of games, and that's basically just our plan for this week. Like, I mean, well, obviously, like we're not gonna just like sit back and do nothing and like play like one style, but that's what we're focusing on in scrims. Anyways, try to have a solid plan and try to have everyone on the same page, because you know you need to have good practice. And I don't think our practice have been the best in general. Unfortunately, so that's basically just hopefully what we end up doing for this last game. Like I don't know. I think like they're obviously a good team, and I think it's a pretty hard matchup for us in general. Actually, like to play against Dragons. I think their playstyle is pretty good into ours. But overall, like we definitely can like end up coming out on top. So it's gonna be a fun set, I think, if we don't fuck up early game.
Sure.
Because I think we can match up pretty well in the late game. But that's all if I guess.
Titans 3-0 for you?
Yeah, of course.
All right, Genetics, how about you? Who do you got in this one? Jade Dragons versus Titans.
I'm gonna go with Dragons 3-2, but I don't know. I think just Dragons have been playing a lot worse. Titans, even though Tracy's his team doesn't have a great matchup, I think like I agree in terms of if they can get through the early game. I actually think Titans are a little bit more chaotic than other teams just because of how random they are. So I think there's a chance they can win mid-late game where Dragons are worse. I just think it depends how the early games go. I do think if Dragons get a lead, the game is over. But if they don't, I think the game's definitely even.
Sure.
And I know that both teams respect each other. I know that Dragons dual lane thinks that a Royal Cyclone has been the best dual lane in the past, and vice versa. So they respect each other a lot. So like Dragons probably think it's a tough match as well. It's not like an easy match for them. So 3-2 either way, but I think it's going to go towards Dragons for sure.
Sure. AJ, you want to round us off here? Jade Dragons versus the Tartarus Titans?
For me, I think it's going to go the way of Jade Dragons, but it is going to be a closer set than a lot of people are going to have it down as on paper, and it is going to come down to 2 things. Firstly, in the Untitled Chapter, it's going to go down to how the early pressure goes, and to me, the more important situation is how is the jungle matchup going to fare? How's Scary going to go up against Sanford Soccer? How's the nice, experienced, comfortable jungler going to go up against still someone that looks a little bit shaky?
Sure.
If the Titans can sort of help alleviate some of the nerfs, some of the flaws that Scary has shown in the jungle, then there's all the reason that Tartarus Titans can take this set. I think, when they say, that Aurora Cyclone Spin have been some of the best, have been one of the best dual lanes, you can't also disagree that Paul's been one of the best mid laners and Benji's been one of the best solo laners. So if they play up to the levels that we know we expect them to, then Titans could theoretically very easily take a 3-0. It's just all about getting that little bit of cohesion back together, and if they could solve that, then I could see them taking it. Whether they can do that in time, though, remains to be seen. For now, I say Jade Dragos take this 3-2.
Okay. I think I'm going to go with the Titans here on this one. I think, like you said, Jade Dragons, I think, have looked probably more shaky than they've looked in 6, 7, 8 months since Worlds of last year, basically, as a roster. And the Titans, while they definitely still have their problems, I think they've shown enough that, a week of practicing very hard, I think, can do them well, especially just if you're practicing just for a tournament, So I think I'll take the Titans 3-2. I did want to get your guys' sort of general thoughts on these playoffs and this whole situation, maybe like what your expectations are for this Phase 1 playoffs, and sort of just your general thoughts on what might happen during this midseason tournament.
For me, I'll be happy if we see 2 pentakills and a surprising team that wins overall.
Sure.
I think that'll make me extremely happy.
Just say 2 pentakills.
Yeah, he said 2 pentakills.
Yeah, 2 pentakills. I'm being greedy.
Yeah. Of course, that's completely normal. 2 pentakills. Yeah.
In a tournament? Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Genetics and Cherry? Any expectations for this tournament at all, or?
I'm going to be negative and just say that the fact that Arthur and Cullen and Yennis Tiamat have been allowed to stay the same and be top picks kind of ruins playoffs for me. Like, if they got nerfed today on Tuesday, oh, sorry, I don't know if it's pre-recorded, whatever. If they got nerfed, it would have been fantastic to see the meta spread out a little bit, but I just think the balance team, even though there's been 91 gods played in 95 games or something like that, I just think those 2 roles are so desperate for switch-ups that it's almost like the end point, because I assume mid-season patch will change quite a lot.
Sure, yep.
I just hope it is.
It's going to.
I just think if to me it's going to be the last time where those 4 gods will all be top picks, hopefully, and that's what I'm looking forward to, like seeing it one more time in that way.
Jerry, any thoughts from you?
I have high hopes. Maybe. Yeah, actually don't think it's gonna be a bad tournament. Just because everyone's like playing pretty sloppy, so we can have like really close and fun games. That's kind of the hope, anyways. And that's usually when you get the most, like the best smite, which is why I think last Worlds as well was really good, because. Well, I don't think teams were like playing bad or anything. Teams actually playing pretty well, but just because like everything's online, there's like, a little bit more mistakes than people usually expect. So the games were very fun to watch, and I'm kind of hoping for the same for this tournament as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for myself as well too. Thanks for watching the SPL Rundown this week. Be sure to catch the SPL Rundown every week before the SPL starts. This week we're on a Friday morning, but usually we're either on Thursday morning or Friday morning. Just whenever the SPL is coming, we're that morning ahead of it. If you want to catch extended cuts or past episodes of the SPL Rundown, be sure to check out our YouTube page. Just search APM Productions on YouTube. If you have any ideas for future guests, feel free to reach out to me at APM2 on Twitter or at APM Productions on Twitter. Lastly, I'd like to thank all of my wonderful guests here and give them a chance to shout out their socials here. AJ, why don't you start us off?
Sure. Thanks for having me on. My name is AlphaJackal. You can find me on Twitch and Twitter at AlphaJackal. Yeah, you can find a link to my Discord on either of them.
Jerry, how about you?
Ex-SPL jungler, washed up coach now. plays for no one right now. Coach Tartarus Titans, and I will be. I forgot what I was gonna say. I got spaced out. I was gonna say something, but yeah, I twitch.tv/Cherryo, and what's the other one?
Twitter.
Twitter.com. Yeah.
At the Cherryo
Ignore
on
me.
Twitter,
Sorry.
right?
I'm too tired now. Yeah.
Genetics, how about you? Feel free to shout out your team or anything you want to shout out here.
Yeah, so I play for the Kings, so don't forget to support the Kings. I stream on Twitch like 4 or 5 times a week on just Twitch and then Genetics _. And then if you want some funny memes, then just follow me on Smite on Twitter, which is Genetic Saber.
Yeah, please.
That's all that matters.
Please go buy merch. You know, we gotta support our players and coaches here in the SPL. Shop.smiteproleague.com. Go pick up some nice merch. I'm rocking a Smite Pro League hoodie here, so it's always good to support our wonderful league here. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you guys next week.